Hello and welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to cover 4 issues that are exclusive to the Brompton P line. I have owned my P line since new, and these are 4 points which I feel are worth sharing with you, the audience. These points will be incredibly useful if you're planning to upgrade from your current Brompton C line, or if you're looking to buy the P line as your first Brompton bike. So let's get straight into it and cue the intro.
He's the Brompton Guy!
The Brompton P line, Brompton's performance line bike which reduces weight to make the bike even lighter and more responsive than the Brompton A or C line. With any company's performance line, this usually requires a bike to drop weight to become more responsive and lighter as an overall bike. Brompton have achieved this with the Brompton P line, but at what cost and what sacrifices to reliability has this started to affect it? I have owned my P line now for just under 6 months, and these 4 issues have already stood out to me and are probably the top 4 considerations if you are looking to buy the Brompton P line itself. The one thing I would like to state before getting into these points is that this bike definitely does not like to be sitting for over 2 weeks. All these issues I'm about to highlight all show themselves when the bike is stationary. When I've been using the bike constantly, it's actually not been as bad, but if you take time away or you're not a constant user of the bike, this is definitely something that you'll want to know before purchasing a Brompton P line. The first problem I'd like to talk about is the hinge joints itself on the P line. As someone that's used C line and the M line for a long time, I've never experienced the same issue and only on my Brompton P line. What that issue is with the actual pin holding the hinge together. I'm not sure if it's the same material as the C line or they've used a lighter weight material on the pin itself, but one thing is for sure, and that is that it seizes up significantly easier than the Brompton C line itself. It just seems to attract more dirt and grime, and when that dirt and grime gets in there, the hinge becomes very stiff, and it almost feels like, while I can't see it, that corrosion is starting to build up on that join and pin. What you will experience is during the fold and unfold of the bike, the actual hinge just actually requires a good bit of effort to get it folded round and locked into position. Now at this point in time, I am able to degrease it, re-grease it back up, and the hinge does go back to normal. But if the bike sits for longer than a week to 2 weeks without being used, this is when the major problem comes in. Now, a lot of people on this channel may not use the Brompton for daily commute and want to use it for smaller rides. So if you want that, the C line is definitely excelling from the hinge joint itself, because I've used that for multiple times, took time off, and the hinge joint has been absolutely fine. I have emailed Brompton on this issue and still currently waiting a response to it, but I've got a feeling their response will be that it's probably just dirt and grime that's got into it, and me as the user hasn't cleaned it out as required. The second point that I would actually like to bring up on here, and this was a major issue for me at one point, and that is the lightweight chain that comes with the Brompton P line. The chain itself is phenomenal because it is so lightweight and it just performs as a chain. However, this chain requires so much maintenance to keep it efficient and fluid as a chain should be. If you're planning to use this bike for commuting, you're naturally going to get a lot more dirt, grime and water and elements into the chain, which yes, you should have to clean, but on this chain itself, if you don't clean it for longer than a week, it starts to physically stiffen up. There was one point I went away on holiday and I didn't use the bike for close to a month, and the chain itself was just completely stiff. It was so stiff that I couldn't even get the pedals to turn. So what I had to do was I had to take the chain completely off, degrease it for half a day, re-oil it, and it did come back to life, but I've never owned a bike where that has happened before, and it certainly never happened to the Brompton C line with the heavier chain. Now, it is easy to say that maybe something got dirtier or not dirtier, but all my other bikes that were left for a longer period that still had a completely functioning chain, and it's not like I'd left my chain overly dirty or I just went out for a wet ride. I'm still quite baffled at what's actually affecting the chain, but all I know is that you're probably going to have to clean this chain very well. If you know you're going to leave it from a prolonged period of time, and it is the chain that itself for myself, I actually clean around every 2 weeks just to make sure it is fluid and clean. While it's not the biggest of issues, it's just annoying to think that a bike you're supposed to use as a quick go-get-me commuter can suffer from issues if you don't use the bike. The third issue, and probably my biggest gripe with it, and I've probably said it in a couple of videos now, is the derailleur setup on the bike. Now, I can't physically blame the derailleur because I'm not 100% sure that's the issue, and there was a great comment that I received explaining the issue that is actually caused. The biggest issue I feel is the cable loses its tension, which then drops the derailleur from the top gear. Now, some might say it's not a big issue because you can actually just tighten up with the barrel adjuster at the gear shifter end, but that barrel adjuster only has a limited length, and it means every time it gets to the end of that, you're going to have to fully reset the derailleur, pull the cable back through from the excess stretch and start again. It's not very practical for a bike that you spend over £2,000 on. And while it's not practical, it's also just incredibly irritable because there's no way of knowing when it's going to happen. Sometimes the gears will function fine for 2 to 3 weeks and then it just randomly comes. So I don't know what's causing that cable to either lose its tension or sag, but it's definitely present and is one of the most irritable features of the Brompton P line. I am actually personally a fan of the derailleur gears at the back, but I do also understand the maintenance of these are very high, but my expectation of that going in was to keep the derailleur clean and to keep the sprockets at the back clean, which I've been doing, but that's not what the issue with the shifting is. The issue is lying with the cable being able to keep the tension. I know it's not only me experiencing the issue, and it's probably one of the more looked at searches from Brompton P line itself, but if you are considering to purchase this bike, you really do have to go in with the frame of mind. You are paying for the lightweight performance, but for that performance, you're giving up on just the pure reliability of the bike, because this bike will take a lot more time for you to maintain, and you're probably going to want to be in to do all that than take it to a bike shop for minor adjustments, because that could start costing you a significant amount of money. The last point that I do want to touch on is the advanced roller wheels. While I do overall maintain these do make the bike better, if you're buying this bike because you think it will roll better, it's lighter so you can carry it, or the wheel's been redesigned so you can roll it better, in the standard configuration, the rolling is just as bad as what the Brompton C line is. The only way you can make these bikes roll efficiently is to get the advanced roller rack, which is going to cost you more money, but as an owner of it and as someone that wanted to roll the bike, it probably is the better money you can spend. But I did also think buying this bike that it would actually be manageable to carry. Now, I'm certainly by no means like not able to lift stuff, but this bike does really get to me, and it isn't something that I can probably lift in one hand for longer than a minute without wanting to naturally switch hands itself. The other thing that really annoys me about the advanced roller wheels is that I maintain they have to be bigger in size, but because they are bigger in size, as I'm pedaling, my pedal upstroke always hits the wheel, and because they're bushing made rather than bearing made, it always makes just that irritable noise while I'm cycling. And yes, it's tiny, but on a bike I've spent over £2,000 on, it's really not something that I want or can I expect. Now, I have changed into easy wheel myself, and that has helped me, but it is annoying that the easy wheels are smaller in diameter, because I do feel the bigger diameter actually works better to make the bike roll more efficiently and less close to the ground itself. It's fine if you're rolling it on very smooth surfaces like shopping centres, but if you take it out onto tarmac and something that isn't perfect, you are going to struggle. And with that, these are the 4 major points that I want to wrap up before I do my major 6-month review of the bike. I think if you are considering to buy the P line, I would never say it's not a worthwhile investment, because I've really enjoyed it. And these are just issues that I'm dealing with. The biggest issue to me is the hinge, because it's harder to resolve than all the other issues itself, because the hinge pin is so concealed, you really can't get to it to remove it or clean it yourself to ensure a smooth operation. So this is something that I see being a longer term issue that I'm hoping Brompton will address under its warranty, but I'm also fairly confident they're going to put it down to user negligence. If you are using this bike as a commuter, then that's absolutely fine because it loves to be rode and it loves to be maintained with oil. But if you want something that you can ride, put away in a corner, come back and it should still function fine, the Brompton C-Line is probably your better option. And with that, I will wrap up. I am aware that it's had a light drizzle all day and I do apologise if my lens has little dots on it from the rain, but unfortunately I cannot control the weather or the elements around me. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's helped you decide if the Brompton P line is for yourself. Thank you and have a good night.
He's the Brompton